Today I should tell you the tale of the two potatoes.
Father, why are you always so gloomy?
You once had two brothers that were turned into potatoes one day while I was in a fit of rage, but you mustn't try and rescue them.
Okay, good night, Father.
During the night, the daughter sneaks away from home to save the potatoes. She came to a forest where a fairy lived who felt kindness towards the girl for a long time. The fairy let the girl sleep in the forest for the night and in the morning. When the girl told her what she desired, the fairy led the girl to the edge of the forest and said, "Halfway across the field you'll see 3 linden trees as fair can be." Then the fairy sent her on her way. When the girl had walked half a day, she saw a large field. In the middle of the field were 3 old linden trees. In each tree sat a potato. But as she walked towards the trees, the potatoes flew down from them and alighted in her hands. It began to speak.
Oh, look, our darling little sister has come to set us free.
Heavens, how happy I am that I have found you. Tell me quickly what I have to do to set you free.
It will be a difficult task. You must not speak a word for 3 years. If you speak so much as one word, we will have to remain potatoes for the rest of our lives. Besides this, you must not visit us anymore.
The girl set out for home at once. Again she came to the forest, where she spent the night, but instead of leafy clearing, there was a great castle. A procession of huntsmen on horseback came trotting out of it, and one of them blew his hunting horn until the whole forest echoed. The count that the castle, forest, and the countryside belonged to rode at the head of the procession. When he saw the girl walking along, he rode up to her and said,
What country do you come from, and what are you doing here?
But the girl did not answer. She only bowed gracefully. The count could not take his eyes from her, for she was beautiful.
Well, if you have not been given speak, you have nevertheless beauty and good wit. If you will come with me to my castle, you will have no reason to regret it.
With a silent gesture, the girl consented, and the count led her straight to his mother in the castle. The girl bowed once more without saying a word.
Where did you get that girl from? It seems she has something wrong with her tongue. Why have you brought her here?
I want her to be my wife. Even if she cannot speak, she is perfect in other ways.
At that, the old countess fell silent. But in her heart, she kept a secret hate towards the girl. The next day, the count married the girl with great joy and festivity. But the wedding ceremony was hardly over when a messenger from the emperor arrived and told that the emperor called all able men to take part in a war. The count, too, had bid his young wife goodbye and set off without delay. Before he left, he called a servant to watch over his young wife. But hardly had the count left the castle when the old countess began to take out her hate on the girl. 8 months later, when the young countess gave birth to a boy, the old woman ordered the servant to take the child into the forest and leave him there to be eaten by wild animals. He did as she ordered and left the child, helpless, in the forest. Soon after this, the count came home on leave. The mother greeted him with,
Your dumb wife is a witch. She has given birth to a dead child.
Yes, the baby lies out there in the forest where I buried it.
The young countess could not speak to defend herself or her brothers, but stayed potatoes forever. Another year passed, and the count had come home on leave a second time. In the meanwhile, his wife had given birth to another boy, and the servant had carried it out into the forest. This time, the young countess said to her son,
Your dumb wife has given birth to a hairy animal.
Yes, a black dog. I buried it in the forest.
And still the young woman could not speak to defend herself. Now the count began to be angry with his wife. He trusted his mother and the servant, and he ordered that his wife be set to work alongside the lowest serving maid in the castle. By the end of next year, the emperor's war was over, and the victorious count returned to his palace. Meanwhile, his wife had a third son, and this one has also been carried out into the forest by the servant. The old woman said to the count,
You or your dumb wife must die. The third child was a horrible monster.
Yes, it flew out of the window into the forest.
Now the count ordered his young wife to be thrown into the castle dungeon, for he wanted to have her burnt as a Death Eater the next day. When the wood was piled up in the courtyard, ready for the fire, he ordered his servants to fetch her from the dungeons, and he set up his court of judgment in the castle yard. The servants stepped forward and sentenced the young countess to death, and asked the court of judgment whether anyone wanted to defend the accused young countess. No one spoke. There was dead silence, broken only by the sighs of the old countess. But suddenly there came the sound of a bugle in the distance. Bugle. Bugle in the distance. And the next moment, two knights in the ferry swept into the courtyard. They wore shining armor, carried shields, each with the picture of a potato etched into it, and each of them held a beautiful boy child in their arms. The treacherous servant was standing by the woodpile and holding a torch to set fire to it. She had no time to understand what was happening before one of the knights got her to the heart with this death spell.
Dear sister, we are here. This very day 3 years are over. Here are your lost sons. A fairy that you know has tended to them for you in the forest.
You can imagine the joy and jubilation there was now. The old countess was driven from the castle, and the young count and countess lived on in true love for the rest of their lives.
Action.